We will be talking about death throughout this video. If that is a topic that is very triggering for you, just be aware that it will be mentioned many, many times. I have a lot of other videos that you can check out that might be a little bit less unsettling at this point in time. Today we are talking about some cool stuff. We are talking about fear of death and how that fear prevents you from living. This suggestion was given by Cognac Papa on Instagram. If you want to follow my Instagram, the link is in the description. I like to talk about random stuff on there, so I hope you come join the crew. So yeah, let's get into it. So I was very intrigued by the fear of death in general. Death is a very prominent topic of conversation in our society. I'm talking, of course, at least from my perspective as an American. For the most part, death seems to be everywhere. We focus on it in movies, horror movies, action movies, even like romance movies. All of them have this element of like life and death level. And there is this fear around it, whether it is what happens if that person's not there anymore, what happens if they never meet each other and they die, what happens then? So I did look up stuff on the internet. I did not use just Wikipedia this time. I also checked to make sure that the sites that I will be mentioning were credible sites. And we're going to be talking about a video that I found on YouTube also that will be linked in the description, and was a recording of, sorry for the pronunciation, Carl Jung, Jung. He was I believe he was Swedish psychoanalyst. He's an interesting character. But we're gonna get into the fear stuff first, and we'll get into his kind of outlook on fear and how it pertains to life after. All right, so let's get into this stuff. So the first thing to cover really is fear. Fear is a very interesting beastie. It controls a lot of what we do in life, but it is also very helpful in a lot of ways as well, as long as it's not inhibiting you from functioning in daily life. If it's just like starting to impede your thoughts and really sink in, please talk to a professional. I am not a professional. This is stuff that I've looked up on YouTube, looked up online, and I have no ability to diagnose or do anything. So fear, from what BetterHelp told me on one of their articles, because they do articles apparently, fear is broken down into a couple different categories. So there is a biochemical element, and there is also an emotional element to fear. So biochemical would be like sweating, like shaking, adrenaline rush, that kind of stuff that physically happens to your body when a fear triggers like that response. The emotional would be the actual emotions that you're feeling at that moment, that fear that you're feeling. Oh no, cat! Oh, that's cat vomit. Even further into that is the type of fear that you are experiencing. So there's also conditional fear and natural fear. Natural fear would be the gut reaction that you have that is like built in to keep you safe. Conditional fear is something that you've learned from society, learned from experience, to also keep you safe, because that is what fear is supposed to be, is give you the red flag when you're starting to get into the zone, or when you're in a zone where you are threatened. So with conditional fear, it could be a thing like maybe when you were a little kid, you were in a baby carriage and like a dog snapped at you. Maybe it didn't like break any skin, didn't even make contact, but maybe just the action of it being that close triggered the fear response. And so as you grow older, even if you see like a small like little fluffy dog who's like the friendliest thing in the world, seeing a dog, your brain goes back to that fear response and like tells you that you're in danger. So that's like the conditioned fear. We all end up with conditioned fears over time. I'm not sure 100% where death falls on this, and when I was trying to look more specifically into death fear, which I found a really interesting article on Very Well Mind, which is linked in the description, I saw that there is a lot of different types of fear of death. Like, it's not just cut and dry fear of death. Even within that, there's different types of fear. So it could be afraid of the act, like of dying itself, like the actual act of dying, or death, which is different than dying. One is the action of it like occurring, the other is like just the thing, or being dead, which is, I guess, a different thing as well. And even within that, there is the fear of perhaps like the lack of control around it, the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding of what is going on as well. And then some people think that it is a fear of death. When they look at it, it actually is the situations that surround death. So that could be illness, it could be pain, it could be what happens to the family members who have someone who die, like what happens to them after. Maybe you're afraid of that, and that is a different type of fear altogether, even though it still surrounds the situation of death. So there's obviously this fear that is very pervasive throughout our culture. Let's get into more detail about it. So, from what the article in Very Well Mind told me about, usually this fear is rooted in a lack of just knowing what's going to happen next. If you are a person who follows a particular religion, I'm sure your religion has some sort of outline for like life after death, be it like Christianity or Buddhism or Islam or anything. You know, there are so many different thoughts on what might happen. Some of them are you go to this place and that's kind of it. Some of them are you get reborn. Some of them, it might cycle through a couple different things, like maybe you start here and then you can end up here if you do that. It's all very interesting. How does Carl Jung fit into this? So there is a video that Carl Jung has on YouTube. Well, he didn't post it because he was born in like the 1800s and died in, I think, the 1950s. I'll put a date up here somewhere. So he is not around presently and obviously was not around when YouTube was created, but there's a great video of him on YouTube that you can check out in the description. And it is him talking about his views on the psyche and how there is enough evidence as to why death is not as finite as we think it is. That should at least alleviate the tension that we feel surround the possibility that death an inevitable end. It's really, really interesting. I suggest you watch it if you have 5 minutes. I just thought it was cool. His theory was that the psyche is not confined to the present. What does that mean? It means like that little thing that makes us us, you know, that little, what some religions might call a soul, the little like thing that controls this meat suit that we wear. That is not necessarily confined to this time and place. And why does he think that way? What is his evidence for that? Well, that would have to do with dreams of the future. We're talking about like psychic ability here a little bit, as well as that feeling of like when you're not going the right direction in life, that kind of innate knowledge that like, I'm not where I need to be doing something else. How does he think that means that we're not like trapped to one limited time and place? Well, he believes that that means that the psyche, our like little inner gerbil that's going on our wheel inside of our head, basically doesn't have to kind of stay there and has access to information that is beyond our meat suit's ability to actually go and discover itself, I suppose. So some might say that like that little psyche would be, I guess, multidimensional in some aspect, or have the ability to be multidimensional. So with that being said, if the psyche is out of this dimension and we're in, I didn't look this part up. Okay, so let's stumble through some stuff and hopefully, maybe I'll look it up later, put some stuff in here. So, we exist in 4 dimensions, I believe, time being the 4th one, but we are limited to time. I'm so sorry for the people out there who are physicists. We are bound by it. So the way our bodies experience it, I suppose, is like one directional. We don't really have control over time. To my knowledge, the theory is that the next level above us, so like I guess 5th dimensional beings, time, they can manipulate time like we can manipulate space. Like I can pick up my notes here and manipulate something that is not myself and have control over what I do in the space around me. But I don't have control over the time around me. So the idea is that like 5th dimensional beings, which I guess in this case, I don't think he didn't use this language, but I'm drawing conclusions that Carl Jung is saying that the psyche exists to a degree in the 5th dimension then. So it would be able to manipulate time and kind of understand it in a nonlinear pattern, I suppose. So that it can kind of keep us on track and keep guiding us and such. Him using the rationale of our psyche is actually in like another dimension, but we're kind of just in this meat suit right now. He believes that one should not look at death as like a final end to things. He says death is a goal that one shouldn't shrink away from. So I guess what he means by that is, so death is a journey, and you need to go along the journey and you need to play it like there isn't an end, more or less. So he says that you need to treat life as if it would go on for centuries and each day is going to come. Even though you will eventually, like your meat suit will die, right? I'm gonna call it the meat suit right now. Even though your meat suit will perish, your psyche, because it is in that 5th dimension and it is not bound to the same laws as the meat suit is, even though the meat suit expires, your psyche doesn't. And given all of the lore surrounding this idea of a soul or this idea of there being something after death found in so many religious places, just everywhere, myths, religion, everything, I don't feel like it's too far of a stretch for us to kind of understand that something happens after. Specifics? I don't know. So basically when your meat suit expires, that end is not a true end. It is an end to a chapter, not an end to the book. Since your psyche still goes to that 5th dimension, that would be like the next chapter. And just because you don't know what the next chapter is going to be like, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There is some comfort in understanding that there is not just an end when there's an end here and you have to worry about everything that happens right now. You want to live in your meat suit as well as you can. Well, okay, I'm gonna use another quote instead because I can't really figure out how to use words right now to describe some of this stuff. So you want to look forward to the great adventure ahead of death. Endings can be scary. Endings can be incredibly intense. But I don't believe most of these things are saying that we need to be afraid of the end exactly, or what we perceive to be the end as death. Yeah. And one thing that Carl also said, so now I'm just going to call him by his first name. Yeah. One thing Carl also said, this is me paraphrasing, thinking one way or another doesn't change the situation, right? Like, if I think my cat's really cute, she's sitting right here, she's looking adorable, it doesn't really change what she's doing. But if I say, oh my gosh, I'm really worried that she might throw up again because she just threw up 15 minutes ago, there's 2 different ways that I can view that situation. And if I view it in she's being really cute right now, it gives me a more positive outlook on it. Because honestly, worrying about that is not going to help me so much right now. I mean, it's not like she's been throwing up. She just threw up once. Maybe Lady Bird got her excited and like she just was like, what? Cats, you know? When I start to like look at the facts versus my fears of it, if I can see and like rationalize that currently the facts support not being worried as much, then it helps me say, okay, so she is being really cute right now and she likes the heated blanket. And then maybe that's the way we need to look at death, you know? There is a possibility that it continues, and there's some pretty fun, like, little evidence things that something happens after. Do we need to worry about what the after is? We can. It doesn't do us much good right now, and we shouldn't let that fear of death stop us from living right now. You know, we need to figure out what we're doing here to make it the best life that we can while we are here. And that is not just like throwing our life away, nor is that worrying about every single second, but just taking the time we have and effectively using it, finding that middle ground between abandonment and just anxiety-induced worry, and kind of go through and hopefully find a solution that works for everyone and find that middle ground. I hope that talking about this a little bit helped you process some things. Please hit that subscribe button, or hit that subscribe button, ding the notification bell if you want to know when I post stuff, and let me know in the comments if you have any other videos that you'd like to see me do, if you have any other things that you just want me to kind of sit on here and chat about. I will try my best to find some information and go with it the way that I can. Again, not coming at it from a mental health professional standpoint, but just coming at it from somebody who really likes to think about stuff and overanalyze stuff. Yay, it's fun. It's also stressful, but I don't know. There's something about at least getting it out and talking about it and telling you guys about it that makes it a little less stressful. And at the end of the day, I think that's important. Between all of us, why else are we here if not to like communicate with one another and kind of build those relationships? Yeah, but I hope that this video helped you process some stuff, and I hope that I will see you here next time, right? Again, if talking about this is really stressing you out and you realize that you worry about this stuff a lot, and actually it affects you a little bit in your day-to-day living, talk to a professional, please. And I want you to get the help that you need, even if you think you just like, something just doesn't seem right. It never hurts to double check with your primary care physician, family medicine doctor, your pediatrician, whoever you see. Chances are they can at least point you in the right direction. Thank you again so much for coming on my channel. I really appreciate it. I post videos every Thursday, so you can go ahead and check out the ones that I have. There's going to be some videos over here that will pop up so that you can go ahead and peruse them. Okay, bye everyone.